Hello. I hope you can hear me because today we're going to go through something that is going to inspire you and motivate you. I hope that you're here with me now. I'm coming to you from the East Coast of New Jersey, and we're having a beautiful day. It's summertime here, and so there's been a long winter. How many of you have felt like either in your life you've had a long winter, or in reality, you've had a long winter? Either way, this Echoes of Love is something that you're not going to regret being a part of. Whenever we go through things, we tend to take away our feelings, our emotions. We tend to take away the things that make us who we are. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to the inputs that you're getting. My name is Alicia Pozsony. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an author. And I live my life by something called heart-led living. And if you've ever seen me before, you know that I'm engaged in doing things to help others, to help women to be empowered and to live their life the best they can for their legacy. Now, I want to remind you that the most powerful thing you can offer another human being isn't money, status, or success. It's your story. And a story has a power to heal. A story has a power to inspire. A story even has a power to save a life. The stories we love best live in us forever. That was said by J.K. Rowling. She is an author and she had great success, but she did it using stories. And I think we all use stories, even though we realize it or not. Now, step away from your current situation. We're going to get back to it, but think about, for a moment, dropping a pebble into a pond. The pebble hits that water in one spot, but that ripple continues beyond where it first landed. And our words are like that. Our actions are like that. And our stories are like that. I want to talk to you about that ripple effect of love, resilience, and authentic connection. How every person in this group, anyone who's seeing this video, has that authentic connection. And you have that power to create change that you may never even fully witness. If you think about your life and the way that you have made a difference, you might remember things you've done. Maybe you said something kind to someone. Maybe you had a relationship that really helped another person. But a lot of people don't realize that some of the changes that they can inspire. And in fact, many people believe that they need a huge platform before they can make a difference. They think, when I have more followers, when I write the book, when I become successful. And you might think when you have the title, then you'll have the impact. But impact doesn't begin with influence. It begins with courage. When I started, I didn't have what I have now, this impact and influence. I didn't have this social media following with thousands of followers on every platform. I didn't have people reaching out to me about the content of my books or my speeches. No, there was a time before that when I struggled deeply. I was an only child. I had a broken home. I lived in poverty most of my life. I had struggles that many don't understand. Even I didn't at that time. I battled depression, anxiety, panic. And I didn't think my story mattered. I thought this is how everyone lived. There were moments when I questioned my purpose. It started out very young, and it made me quiet my voice. It made me settle down and wish I could just disappear. I became an introvert. And, people often think that speakers have confidence from the start. But if you saw me back then, I was very quiet. And in fact, it took my career journey to get me to a point where I could take that knowledge that I had and come forward with it. So in my job, I was very outspoken and confident, but not with personal relationships, not with the history that I had. And I ended up understanding out of my experiences that confidence isn't something we're born with. It's something we build through surviving the things that we live, things that we even thought might break us. And I had a turning point where everything came into place. Everything settled and sank in like puzzle pieces. My pain had a purpose. I began to see something, and I want you to write this down. You're never going to kill storytelling because it's built in the human plan. We come with that. That storytelling started far beyond us, and by living through your life and translating that into a story can help you to establish your legacy. And people will remember you, and you can even inspire others as you go through life. Because the thing that I really wanted to hide was the thing that helped me help others. And it happens. If you think of all the greats, all the people you may be inspired by, the women that have led, they tell their story and they connect with it authentically. And this ripple happens. But it starts with your voice. It starts with your story, and it starts with your courage. The things you've survived may be the very things that someone else needs to hear about. And it's not perfect. Don't think I have to get it perfect. You're not perfect. You're real. And that's what people want. That's what resonates. So remember the ripple. Remember you're real. And tell your story. Now, years ago, I started with my story not because it was comfortable. It wasn't. Not because it was easy. It wasn't. There I was in Miami on Les Brown's stage, my first stage. My knees were knocking. My teeth were chattering. I didn't know if the words would come out. Sweating bullets, I managed to step on the stage. How I didn't fall, I have no idea. And it was like something happened. I realized my silence helped no one. I realized I could tell my story and inspire that audience of over hundreds of people. I realized that I could give this presentation and I didn't have to fear being judged because it was authentically mine. And in fact, after the presentation, two things happened. One, a woman approached me and she had tears in her eyes and she said, "I've been there. I thought I was the only one." And those 7 words really helped with my belief that I was doing the right thing. She understood my story. She felt empowered that she was not alone. And that was just amazing. I still have goosebumps thinking about it. I also had a second thing happen. I went up to one of Les Brown's trusted advisors and I asked her, what can I do to move forward in this? I really love speaking. This is my first experience. I don't know what else I can do. I want to leave a legacy for my children. I want to change my history of the family abuse. And I want to make a difference. And she looked at me. She said, with no hesitation, you're doing it. I was already doing it. I took the step to make that change. I started the ripple. And the connections I made, taking that step, not out of fear, not out of judgment, I took the step and I was able to understand the true power of storytelling. Because stories don't just transfer information. Stories like music, art, they're expressions of love and they create connection. And they tell people, I care. You are seen. You are heard. You are understood. And most importantly, you are not alone. Now, how many of you walk through life with an invisible burden? If you raise your hand, nod your head, if you have an invisible burden, something others don't know about, maybe it's a relationship issue, something you can't change, a relationship you can't mend. Maybe it's a personal weight that you carry, something you're doing and you can't seem to stop, like saying yes to people all the time. Maybe you have a burden greater to bear, something you can't change, a lost loved one that you would never be able to bridge a gap or mend a situation, and you can't go back, you don't get a second chance. But the grief, the fear, the shame, the failure, the loneliness, all those things are there, and you need someone to say, me too. Not as a comparison, but because you want to connect, you want to bridge hearts, and that's exactly what you will do if you start authentically giving people permission to do the same thing. Start that healing, start that path so that your legacy can live. You can teach the kids that you can make a change. I have 2 kids and I have a mentally ill mother. And the fact that they know that I take the courage to stand up and tell my story gives them confidence to live their life better than I did, better than my ancestors did. I'm changing the generation. And that is definitely an echo of love. Now, we have a few minutes left. I want to share with you a quote. One of my favorite quotes says, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And you might want to write that down as a reminder. You may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And it's true. If you had someone in your life, like a teacher that changed your life, a friend that called at the right moment, the mentor who believed in you, the stranger who offered kindness when you needed it most. Many of them probably don't even know the impact that they made. I had a 6th grade mentor impact me. I was a different person in the class. I didn't fit in. And his name was Robert Love Bethia. He told us on the first day, Love wasn't his middle name, but it's how he led his life. It's how we knew him. Robert Love Bethia. And Robert was a teacher, sixth grade, can you imagine middle school kids? And he's teaching these kids. And the one thing that he instilled in all of us, he told us that we are a team. He told us that no one in here is any different, any less. It didn't matter how short, how tall, how fat, how skinny. It didn't matter how much we were different in the color of our skin, the color of our hair, color of our eyes, the texture of our hair, the way that we talked, the way that we walked. He had us work equally, and he did that every day of my sixth grade year. He didn't simply show up. He cared. And many of those people that impacted you, they showed up. They listened. They cared. And years later, you remember them. Who's your Mr. Robert Love Bethia? So don't underestimate the power of the small acts. When you're with others, if you choose to smile at someone, have a conversation, encouraging message, a shared story, because everybody's looking for immediate results with what we have in the world today with this technology. But impact won't always happen instantly. Sometimes you plant a seed and it takes time to bloom. So don't get discouraged. Start living a life of intentionality. A tiny word today might be someone's strength tomorrow. A story shared may inspire someone to keep going next month. I met a man named George in the dollar store. He had a hat on, and I thanked him for his service. He was a veteran. And he said that was not the biggest part of his life. And I asked him, what was the biggest part of your life? He said that when he was in the first 6 weeks of his training, his buddies were going to go out. They got a weekend off. Something told him to stay back. And those buddies all got killed. They were going over a railroad trellis and they hit some bomb. The next thing you know, it exploded. And they died. He had an intuition to stay back, and that was his biggest takeaway. He shares that story whenever he can, that you want to use your intuition. Don't hold back because you're afraid of what someone might think, afraid of what someone might think because you're being different. But take that step and use compassion. It may change the direction of an entire life. And you may not know what happened, but it happens anyway. Now, I want to connect with you a minute. Raise your hand if someone else's story positively changed your life. I think we all have someone who positively changed our life. Now, every hand that's up represents a ripple. My hope is that each of us remains committed to becoming that ripple for someone else. If you think you can do it, I commend you, because we're gathered here at Echoes of Love, and I want to leave you with one question. What ripple do you want to create? What do you want out of your life for your legacy? What do you want to have people remember you for? It's not what achievement do you want. It's easy to live a life of let's hit the goals, let's check the boxes, let's complete the tasks. But no, it's not what thing you want to accomplish. It's what ripple do you want to leave behind? Because at the end of our lives, they're going to remember how you made them feel. They're going to remember when you offered hope, whether you listened, cared, whether you took time, whether you used your voice to lift others. And every one of you has a story. I want you to know that you have influence. You have the ability to create positive change for your legacy and for those that you leave behind. The world doesn't need more perfect people. The world needs more courageous people. People willing to tell their truth. People willing to choose kindness. People willing to create connection and willing to become that ripple. You may never know whose life changes because you chose to speak, but that doesn't make your impact any less real. Share your story, speak your truth, lead with love, and trust the ripples that will be created, that you will create after you are gone. My name's Alicia, and I would love to connect with you. Reach out to me, and I want to have a conversation. You can be that ripple for your legacy.